Ringer, you have a little more insights on the music industry side, don't you, about that for your week in music?
I do. For my week in music, I've been talking about for the last few months now, and you've heard me on various episodes talking about streaming platforms. And this all came from the question of, is it time to ditch Spotify? Because I read an article that Spotify was basically initiating a race to the bottom. So they already pay one of the lowest per stream royalty rates of all the streaming platforms. And now they were basically offering artists less money in exchange to be featured on certain playlists. So Spotify would put an artist on a playlist, potentially exposing them to more listeners. But in exchange, that artist would have to then agree to even less of a payment. And that was already at 0.004 cents per stream, which is not a lot of streams. I think at 1 million streams, that comes to about, is it $4,000? Somewhere in there, math, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, no, sorry, 100,000. Yeah, 1 million streams is about $4,000. $4,000. So 100,000 streams is about $400, which 1 million streams, $4,000. Yeah, that might sound okay, but realistically, getting 1 million streams probably isn't going to happen. And even then, if you do, it might take you a full year. That's a full year of your music being out there and only getting $4,000. That's, I don't know about you or where you live, but $4,000 is not going to cut it for 1 year.
No, for as much as it actually does entertain as many people out there as it does. And it's just really, that's like really lowballing. I mean, I would think that a penny a song at the very least. And that's just me going, if I was somebody out there, why couldn't you do that somehow, But, again, I don't know the business model of Spotify in that long end, like how much it really does pull in order to do that and how much it actually takes in for themselves. So it sounds easy for me on the outside, but this still sounds like some sort of scam against the artists, just another music industry robbery of the artists regardless.
Right. And that's what people have been arguing for. Some like, oh, penny a stream or something. I also don't know the logistics behind it and how everything works. And also that money, so that $4,000, if you get 1 million streams, that's before the label takes their cut. And then that's before it's split among members or royalties if you have to pay someone out who is on that song. So realistically, that $4,000 for any one person could easily be $1,000 or less. And that's if you're like a singer-songwriter and your label takes half and you get half, maybe you'll get $2,000. So it's not a good way to make money, unless you're someone like Taylor Swift who gets hundreds of millions of streams. But at that point, she also doesn't need the money. But in her defense, I'm not ragging on Taylor Swift. She has spoke up for artists getting paid on Spotify. And that was one of her requirements for having her catalog put on Spotify. Was she said, hey, we need to work on paying the smaller guys a little bit more. Let's figure something out. Not sure what's come of it, but hopefully something, because right now streaming your music is not a way to make money as an artist. So that led me, coming full circle, to look for other streaming platforms and see what's out there. What do they like? Are they any good? How do they pay? And I've been trying some out. I tried out Napster. I tried out Tidal. And then most recently, I tried out Deezer. Deezer is a French company. It's a French streaming app. And I didn't know this at the time, but Deezer is actually one of the largest in the world. I think it's more popular in Europe. And Deezer is actually a popular platform for our podcast. A lot of people listen to our podcast on Deezer. And I think one reason for that is because, and this is one thing I like about Deezer, kind of getting into my recap here, is if you pull up an artist and then you click on podcasts, it'll show you any podcast where that artist is talked about or featured, I suppose, in the title. So it just grabs them all and puts them in there. So when we talk about the Foo Fighters and do their album review, if you look up Foo Fighters on Deezer and go to podcasts, you're going to see our episode, Medicine at Midnight, episode 86, pop up in there. So that's kind of cool. It's a good way for podcasts to get out there a little more.
Fucking right.
But getting into Deezer a little bit more, it's largely similar to your Spotify, your Tidal, even Napster a little bit. It's pretty user friendly. They all kind of have the same look and feel, same layout, but there's it's lots of subtle nuances and difference. So one thing that I do like is the podcast. Another thing that's intriguing to me about Deezer is how they're paying. And that was one of the things that's important to me is how are they paying? Napster pays the highest at like 0.01, I believe. Tidal's in second around 0.06 or 7. This is off the top of my head, so I'm not exactly sure. But Deezer is trying this new system, and it's called User-Centric Payment System, or UCPS. And essentially what happens is your money only goes to artists you listen to. And what happens now is artists receive money based on a percentage of total listeners of all the listens. So if Taylor Swift gets 25% of all streams on Spotify, she would get 20% or 25% or whatever percent I just said. I can't even remember. She would get that percentage of all the money that's available to be paid to artists. So this kind of flips that and says, well, if J-Man only listens to Raffi, Raffi's going to get all of his money. Now, I'm not sure exactly how this works because in theory it sounds great, but I have some questions of like, what happens if I listen to a lot of music? Couldn't there be a point where the per stream per artist goes even lower than what Spotify's is? Because let's say I listen to one artist 1 million times in a month and it equates to 0.002 cents per stream. That's one question. Another question is, what if I only listen to one artist, but I only listen to him like 5 times? Do they get all 10 of my dollars? I know Deezer takes a cut, but so all 5 of my dollars, how does that work? So there's some questions there, not quite sure. Again, largely its layout's very similar. One negative that I did have with this is the search function kind of sucks. And I think Spotify is still the standard on this because sometimes I would search for an artist on Deezer and it would auto suggest an artist, but it would also suggest like artist plus album or artist plus song. And sometimes I just like to go to the artist page and then find and like go through their discography or look through their songs and pick something myself. And so that was kind of annoying. I'd have to type out like Foo Fighters and then all the way spell it out instead of just having Foo Fighters, the most obvious one, auto-filled for me. So that really annoyed me because I found that happening a lot. So that was one thing that I really didn't like about Deezer was just their search kind of sucked. Big takeaway. I think if Deezer can prove that this UCPS really benefits the artist and fixes their shitty search algorithm, I might be all in on Deezer and I might just make the full-on switch to Deezer and go forward with that platform. But I do need to see that search thing improved, and I do need to know that this payment model actually is valuable to artists and pays them more than 0.004. I think right now I'm probably leaning towards Tidal because that seemed to be the kind of middle between the search and some features still aren't as great as Spotify, and that's where Spotify is good. It's probably the most user-friendly, but it is the lowest in payout rate. So I might at the moment switch back to Tidal and use that for a while, but kind of check in on the other apps. Napster, that one did pay the highest. I talked about that one, but that one is so far behind in all of the features. It's just not that great. I can't in good faith recommend Napster yet. Unless you solely care about how much an artist makes from them. In that case, go all in for it. But we're going to keep trying this, keep plugging away. I'll probably do a bigger breakdown on a future episode of all the apps and really get into the nitty gritty. But that's where I'm at on Deezer so far. But we'll see what it's like going forward from here.